Gems are an incredibly powerful item introduced in Generation 5. In fact, Game Freak themselves realized how powerful gems were, and they quickly removed most of them from the game, with Generation 5 being the only gen where they're all available. They're a one-time use item that boosts the power of a move by an incredible 1.5 times. Furthermore, you can use more than one gem per battle, unlike other powerful mechanics like Mega Pokemon, Z-moves, and Dynamax. Following Gen 5, only the normal gem was made available, and that too with only a 1.3 times boost. In 2022, gems as a whole was banned from competitive Generation 5 OU Pokemon, which is standard play. What made gems ban-worthy? But perhaps more interestingly, if it was so broken, why did it take so long? Pokemon Black and White was released in 2010, but gems are only getting banned in 2022. What happened? But first, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's free and helps out the community a lot. Gems are often used on already powerful Pokemon to turn them into absolute monsters. Volcarona with a Bug Gem, Cloyster with an Ice Gem, Latios with a Dragon Gem, they're all basically unstoppable, especially when you factor in that they can themselves boost too. This is notably different from Choice Band or Choice Specs. Even though they're both a 1.5 times boost, gems can be applied on top of other boosts as well, like Calm Mind or Dragon Dance. And of course, gems also don't lock you into a move. In general, the risk-reward of using gems is amazing. Most items that are low drawback, like say Mystic Water or Xrd Belt, also have a low reward, and most items that are high drawback, like Life Orb or Choice Band, correspondingly have a high reward. Gems have a low drawback, all you do is lose the item slot, but in return has an amazing reward, a powerful nuke of an attack. For example, Pokemon like Cloyster can one-hit KO even Ferrothorn with an Ice Gem after a Shell Smash. These gems are most famously used on stab moves to create something truly unstoppable, but they can also be used on non-stab coverage moves to get around their checks. For example, Cloyster can use a Rock Gem to get past Heatran, and Volcarona can use a Psychic Gem to get past Tentacruel. All of this, and we haven't even talked about using multiple gems on the same team. Powerful offensive teams often run multiple gems on one team, and Pokemon wall break for each other and force sacrifices to be made. While it's not a complete analog, imagine if you could activate multiple Z moves on the same team. A natural critique is that a gem can only be used one time anyway, so all you need to do is predict the gem. But that doesn't take into account that the gem user can also predict. Just as you can try and sacrifice a low health Pokemon to a powerful gemmed attack, the gem user can just as easily predict the sacrifice and use a move like Quiver Dance or Calm Mind. Games can get reduced into a guessing game where you hope you can time your sacrifice to the gem and then do it again for every gemmed Pokemon. That's not even including the guessing game of trying to figure out what gem it is. Cloyster with an Ice Gem and Cloyster with a Rock Gem is basically indistinguishable at Team Preview, and it's not something you can usually deduce with knowing game context. Both have different counters and you won't know what Pokemon on your team is the right one, and it's yet another example of a guessing game where you have to hope the switch-in you choose isn't matched up against the wrong gem. The raw power of gems is really only matched by getting the coin flip guessing decisions right, and it was deemed to be overpowered and was banned. The reason gems were chosen as a whole instead of individual Pokemon was because the majority felt that gems were the common thread making several Pokemon overpowered, and it would make more sense to ban gems outright instead of individual Pokemon like Volcarona or Cloyster. But if gems are so overpowered, why did it take so long? There's a few reasons here, some more nuanced than the others, and depending on who you ask, some reasons more important than the others. One big reason, and arguably the biggest reason, is that people didn't know that gems are overpowered. Literally. The mechanic that a gem applies in every hit on a multi-hit move, like Icicle Spear, was not originally known. People assumed that it only applied to the first hit, which is not true. Once the mechanic was discovered, Gem Cloyster, for one, became a popular big threat. Cloyster became a force to be reckoned with, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. After all, powerful sweepers like Volcarona and Latios don't use multi-hit moves. However, they still take advantage of multi-hit sweepers. Hyper-offense styles benefit from powerful attackers being paired with other powerful attackers, and Latias and Volcarona, for example, can benefit from Cloyster creating holes in a team and vice versa. Besides that, Gen 5 has always been controversial. It was the first generation with Team Preview, it was the first generation that introduced a lot of new mythicals and legendaries, some of which would end up becoming overpowered, and it was the first OU generation with Weather Wars and all the overpowered Pokemon and strategies that came along with it. Gen 5 had a lot of different tiering decisions that took precedence or even obscured some of the more deeply rooted issues like gems. As an example, Sleep is now completely banned in Gen 5 for being way too overpowered, but before the Sleep ban, Latios wouldn't use Calm Mind Dragon Gem as often because it was too busy using Sleep Talk to switch into Spore Amoonguss. The brokenness of gems were hidden behind things that were even more broken. Finally, there's also just natural growth and innovation, which is partially related to the previous point about other things taking precedence. As things get banned, new strategies and ideas get formed, and old ideas get renewed life. But even besides bans, and even though less people play the older generations, better strategies are always being innovated and perceptions about what is good and bad can always change. As long as there are tournaments people care about, people will always be searching for an edge, and better strategies will always be being created and evolved, and some of those strategies will end up being overpowered. For example, Baton Pass was banned in Generation 4 and 5 after the generation ended, once people realized how overpowered it was. Overall, gems proved to be a low-risk, high-reward strategy and became an overpowered force in the Generation 5 metagame. The reason it took so long to get banned was because some key mechanics regarding it were actually unknown, and the power of gems were somewhat hidden with all the other overpowered things running around.